At this stage of life, a quiet revelation often arrives without announcement. It does not come with fanfare or urgency. It simply settles in, almost unnoticed at first, like the soft awareness that accompanies a changing season. The world itself has not shifted nearly as much as your understanding of it has. What once demanded immediate attention now feels optional. What once felt essential has been gently reclassified by experience. You have lived long enough to recognize truth without needing to defend it, explain it, or prove it to anyone else. This is the revelation that clarity does not come from adding more to life, but from seeing clearly what has always mattered. This revelation is earned, not gifted. It comes after decades of trial, effort, and recalibration. You remember a time when success was defined by speed, accumulation, or recognition. You pursued goals with intensity, believing that momentum alone would eventually deliver meaning. Yet the years have quietly corrected that assumption. They have shown you that fulfillment is rarely found in excess, and that significance emerges not from constant expansion, but from alignment. What matters now is not how much you carry, but what you choose to hold. With age comes a refined sense of proportion. You understand which worries deserve attention and which merely consume energy. You recognize that many of the pressures that once governed your decisions were temporary, even illusory. This is not detachment born of indifference, but discernment shaped by experience. You see more clearly because you have seen enough, and that clarity is a form of freedom that cannot be rushed or simulated. The years you've lived have given you a gift no book, lecture, or seminar could offer. Time itself has been your greatest teacher. Through repetition and consequence, it has taught you discernment. You've learned which promises are hollow and which endure. You've watched enthusiasm fade while integrity remains. You've seen how character outlasts talent, how patience often outperforms force, and how quiet consistency shapes outcomes more reliably than bursts of ambition. This is the gift of years, accumulated wisdom earned through effort, error, perseverance, and reflection. You did not borrow it, you paid for it. You paid for it with long hours, difficult decisions, and moments of doubt. You paid for it through failures that humbled you and responsibilities that stretched you beyond comfort. You paid for it in relationships tested by time and commitments that required endurance rather than excitement. And through it all, something solid formed beneath the surface, a steadiness, a knowing, a capacity to see beyond appearances. This wisdom is not abstract. It lives in your judgment, in the way you assess people and situations, in how quickly you recognize patterns others miss. It shows up in your restraint as much as your action. You understand now that wisdom is not loud. It does not rush. It waits for the right moment, then speaks with precision. This is the quiet authority of lived experience. With this wisdom comes a new kind of opportunity. Not the opportunity to chase everything, but the opportunity to choose deliberately. You are no longer compelled by comparison or external validation. You understand, as only experience can teach, the true value of time. This creates the opportunity now, the ability to focus your remaining energy on what is most meaningful, most authentic, and most aligned with who you have become. At this stage of life, choice becomes more powerful than effort. You know that energy is finite, and you respect it accordingly. You no longer feel obligated to participate in every expectation placed before you. Instead, you evaluate with intention. Does this matter? Does this align? Does this contribute to something lasting? This is not withdrawal from life. It is engagement on your own terms. You also recognize that freedom now comes less from expansion and more from simplification. Removing what no longer serves you creates space for what truly does. Relationships deepen. Priorities clarify. Your attention becomes less scattered and more purposeful. This is the advantage of perspective. You are not chasing relevance, you are exercising relevance through choice. There is also a quiet calling that tends to surface in this season, a sense that life is asking something different of you now. Not more accumulation, but contribution. Not louder success, but deeper significance. This is the legacy moment, the chance to complete what was left unfinished, to pass on what was hard earned, and to shape intentionally the influence you leave behind. Legacy at this stage is not about grand gestures. It is about continuity. It is about ensuring that what you have learned does not end with you. You begin to feel the importance of transmitting values, insight, and perspective to those who follow. This may take the form of mentoring, teaching, guiding, or simply living in a way that quietly instructs others. You may also feel drawn to unresolved aspirations, not as a return to ambition, but as a desire for completion. Some dreams were postponed, not abandoned. Some truths were learned late, but not too late. This is not about reclaiming youth. It is about honoring the full arc of your life by bringing it into coherence. This realization does not signal an ending. It signals a shift. The harvest years are not about looking backward with regret, but forward with perspective. You understand now that every season had its purpose. The years of striving, the years of endurance, the years of waiting, all were preparing you for this moment of clarity. You stand now at a point where wisdom, perspective, and purpose converge, not to begin again, but to bring everything full circle. With that understanding, we move into the deeper meaning of what these years truly represent. With the wisdom of experience, life reveals its patterns more clearly. What once appeared chaotic now shows structure. What once felt unfair now reveals intention. You've seen enough beginnings and endings to understand that nothing meaningful is accidental. The decades behind you have taught you that growth is rarely linear, that progress often arrives disguised as delay, and that apparent detours frequently become the most instructive parts of the journey. This is the deeper understanding. Perspective transforms memory into insight and experience into guidance. When you were younger, you may have believed life moved according to effort alone, that hard work produced predictable outcomes. Time has corrected that belief. You now see that life shapes character through contrast. It teaches patience through waiting, humility through failure, and wisdom through repetition. The events that once confused you now connect. The setbacks that seemed disruptive now appear necessary. This is not hindsight regret. It is earned comprehension. At this stage of life, you no longer need certainty to move forward. You understand that meaning often becomes visible only after distance is gained. This awareness allows you to hold complexity without frustration. You accept that not everything resolves neatly, yet nothing is wasted. This acceptance brings peace, not passivity, a calm strength rooted in understanding how life truly unfolds. In this season, you begin to recognize the harvest before you, not measured solely in titles earned, milestones reached, or material success, but in judgment refined, values clarified, and resilience strengthened. You have gathered lessons from success and humility from failure. You have learned when to persist and when to release. What once felt like loss now reveals itself as preparation. This is the harvest, the accumulated substance of a life lived attentively, even when the meaning was not immediately clear. This harvest is substantial. It exists in your ability to remain steady under pressure, to listen without rushing to respond, and to see beyond surface appearances. It shows in the way you assess risk, recognize character, and anticipate consequences. These qualities were forged over years of responsibility and reflection. They cannot be taught quickly, nor replaced by information alone. You may now realize that some of your most valuable lessons came not from achievement, but from endurance, from continuing when outcomes were uncertain, from showing up when recognition was absent. These experiences matured your perspective and tempered your expectations. They taught you what lasts and what fades. This is the harvest that endures when circumstances change. That harvest is not meant to sit idle. The world does not need more noise, more urgency, or more opinion. It does need seasoned voices, those who have lived through cycles, endured change, and remained standing. Your experience carries authority precisely because it was earned. This is the contribution: mentoring without preaching, guiding without controlling, and offering insight that steadies others navigating uncertain terrain. At this stage, contribution looks different than it once did. It is less about leading from the front and more about stabilizing from within. You understand that influence does not require dominance. Often the most effective guidance is subtle, offered at the right moment, grounded in respect rather than in. You may find yourself increasingly aware that others benefit from your presence alone. Your calm perspective tempers anxiety. Your questions create clarity. Your restraint models discernment. This is contribution rooted in being, not doing. It reflects the authority of someone who has seen enough to remain composed and thoughtful in moments of uncertainty. There is also a quieter, more personal dimension to this stage, a desire for completion. Not perfection, but wholeness. You may feel called to resolve old questions, mend relationships, or express truths long held back. This is the completion, bringing the many chapters of your life into coherence, allowing the story to make sense as a whole. Completion does not require rewriting the past. It requires understanding it. You begin to see how earlier choices led you here, even when the path felt indirect. You may feel prompted to reconcile with aspects of yourself you once judged harshly, to recognize that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. This self-acceptance is not complacency, it is maturity. You may also feel a pull toward unfinished expressions, conversations not yet had, gratitude not fully spoken, or insights not yet shared. Addressing these does not reopen old wounds. It closes loops. It allows energy, once tied to unresolved matters, to return to the present, where it can be used with intention. Finally, there is the matter of lasting impact. Legacy is not confined to monuments or memories. It lives in the values transmitted, the examples set, and the wisdom shared. You've lived long enough to know that influence often travels quietly and endures longer than recognition. This is the lasting impact, choosing with intention how the harvest of your years will nourish others. Legacy is rarely dramatic. It is cumulative. It exists in the way others think differently because of you, choose more wisely because of you, or persevere because they observed how you carried yourself through difficulty. These effects are not always visible, but they are profound. At this stage of life, you are no longer building for applause. You are shaping for endurance. You understand that what lasts is often invisible at first. Values outlive achievements. Character outlives reputation. Wisdom, once shared, continues its work long after the moment has passed. The harvest years are not about starting over. They are about bringing everything full circle, using what you have learned to shape what remains with clarity, dignity, and purpose. This is not an ending, but a fulfillment, a season where life's meaning becomes clearer, deeper, and finally complete.